Hey everyone, Ranger William from the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail. Now, whether you're camping out in the forest or in your own backyard or even in your living room, one important thing to remember is to have fun. Now, if you study the American Revolution, like when the Overmountain Victory Trail happens, one fun thing to do is imagine how would they have been doing their camping? What kind of activities, what kind of survival tools will those American Revolution soldiers have been using rather than the nicer things that we use today? So what I'm going to be showing you here is a way to start a campfire using the Colonial Method, using a flint and a steel striker. Now, one very important thing about the campfires is that everyone has their own method. You could watch 10 different videos of people lighting a fire 18th century style, and you're going to see 10 different methods, 10 different recommendations for what to do. So I'm going to be showing you here is the way that I like to do it, a way that I found to be pretty effective. Now, one very important part about starting any campfire is preparation. You want to make sure to have all of your materials, all of your tools, your supplies, your fuel together and staged so that you don't have to go and get them when you're in the middle of the process. This is not only going to make things simpler and easier on you, but also it's a very important safety point to never leave your fire unattended. You don't want to get a nice campfire going, realize you've forgotten something, and either have to abandon your fire or let the fire go out because you didn't have your materials. So a little bit of a visual. I'll turn the camera here. I'm out here on my back patio with my nice little fire ring and some of the different materials that I have. When you're looking at fuel for a fire, you have tinder, kindling, and fuel. I think I have those in the right order. But those are three different sizes of fuel that you're going to use for your fire. Now this one here, this is going to be the smallest. This is actually just some cedar bark. I recently harvested off a tree here in my yard. This very nice, light, flaky pieces. And you can kind of see that when you pull these apart, they get kind of shredded, kind of this fibery, soft, fluffy look. These very small fibers are what's first going to catch, first going to ignite. So it's a very important part of your step to have this prepared. Now you see the kind of the shape I'm trying to hold it in here, a little kind of a pseudo bird's nest where it's kind of rounded, a little area in the middle, and you'll see where that comes into play in just a second. But the next size up is going to be your Tinder Bundle, or kindling bundle, whichever one comes first. Now what I like to do is these are going to be kind of in a little tight bundle like this, not too tight. You have to be able to let them breathe. And remember your fire triangle: fuel, heat, and air, oxygen. So if they're too tight together, the oxygen can't flow through and they won't ignite properly. But a good rule of thumb for these guys is you want them very small, very thin, definitely less than the size of your pinky finger, which I know mine's pretty big, so it's a pretty wide range there. But a nice little bundle like this. Now, if you can kind of see inside my fire ring here, what I've done, I have a layer of sand and some ash from some previous campfires, but I have a few pieces of charred log left over. This is going to serve as kind of like a backdrop, and I'm going to take my bundle and lay it propped up against those charred logs. Again, remembering that fire triangle. This propped up position will allow not only oxygen and air to flow underneath that tinder bundle, but it'll allow me a place to insert my little fake bird's nest once that starts to ignite with my flint and steel. Now the biggest in the next stage of your sticks, your fuel, is going to be regular fuel. This is going to be once the fire's started burning. These are going to be larger sticks. These are going to be small pieces of limbs. I've been doing some work here out in the backyard, and I have some nice chips here from some sweet gum trees. So these will be a nice fuel, nice and thin. They should have dried out by now. And what I'll be using, talking about the flint and steel, is a piece of flint rock, which is a very dense, very solid stone, and can be broken off at angles, little pieces flaked off to create a sharp edge. In fact, before Native Americans had iron and steel cutting implements, they used stones much like this, for cutting, knives, spearheads, you name it. So the other piece is a steel striker. It's a little piece of hardened iron that has a little handle loop on the back made for me by a friend of mine. And the way this works is that when you strike that steel face against that hard, sharp flint edge, that flint is actually going to scrape off little pieces of steel. And those little microscopic pieces come off with enough friction that they're glowing red hot. That's what sparks are. So I'll see if I can strike it and get you guys a good visual here. Let's try this other side. So there you see a few little sparks there. That's a pretty good one. So what I need to do is find a way to catch those little sparks on something that will allow them to smolder and slowly grow. And for that, I'm really excited about trying this. I actually haven't tried this method before. Inside here is a piece of charred punk wood. So this is going to be where there's been a rotting log. You may have seen them if you're out in the woods. It's getting kind of soft and kind of rotten. You take those and you'll actually kind of bake them inside a little metal tin like this. And this is going to burn off all combustible material until it's pretty much down to a kind of a pure carbon kind of state like this here. Nice and kind of flaky. You can see it's already kind of getting on my fingertips here. But this is going to catch one of those sparks. I'll then take this, insert it, wrap it up into my little Tinder Bundle here, my little bird's nest, and then place that under my kindling bundle, and hopefully we'll have a fire. So again, very important to be safe. Always keep in mind what's around you. Nothing is nearby that could accidentally catch fire. Make sure it's nice and safe. And also watch your weather conditions. You don't want to do this when it's too windy. You don't want any of these embers or sparks to be carried where you don't want them. Also, we recently had a very heavy rain, so thankfully things are nice and still pretty soaked from that. So it's good, calm, safe conditions right now. So I'm going to place my charred wood right there into my bird's nest. Get my flint and steel here. Try to see if I can catch one of those sparks down onto that wood. And when we read about the men who are on the trail during the Overmountain Victory March, a lot of the weather conditions they describe are going to be lots of rain. So you can imagine trying to do this when you have fuel that is just soaking wet. If it's raining currently, your clothes are wet, your supplies. It's going to be a very rough, and this is happening in late September, early October. So a chilly, kind of damp situation, not a lot of fun. Now we're going to try something a little different here. Something that I have is the same idea as that charred piece of dried wood. It's called Char Cloth, and this is just charred cloth. The same idea where it's little pieces of fabric that have been placed in a metal tin and baked in a campfire until all that's left is a good high carbon material able to catch those sparks. So I'm going to place that down here into my little bark nest. So caught a spark, wrap it up, provide oxygen, and wrap it in fuel. So remember, what you're watching for here is that all of your stages of fuel are catching properly. The small tinder, the kindling. Alright, well I think they've all started to catch now. Started to catch. That's started to caught. Yeah. Very good. Now that those two stages, slowly start to watch it. As you're adding your other fuel, you want to make sure that you don't smother it. That you don't push it down so much. Remember, you want to have oxygen flow moving through those branches. So you don't want to do anything that will deny that airflow. There we have our little campfire started.